morning, students. This is Srikant signing in for Contracts 1. In our previous class, we have seen the essentials of a contract. Let us recapitulate. To constitute a contract, you have to satisfy certain conditions. What are they? Namely, two parties, consensus ad idem, capacity to contract, free consent, lawful consideration, legal relationship, lawful object, terms must be certain, and possibility of performance. So we have analyzed three conditions, namely number one, two parties. We have seen in a contract there will be two parties, namely offerer and the acceptor. Number second point, second condition is consensus ad idem, that means identity of minds. So both the parties to the contract must have agreed or consented about the subject matter in the same sense and at the same time. So identity of minds or meeting of minds. No consensus ad idem, no contract. Again, we have seen third condition, that is capacity to contract. So any person is competent to contract provided he is a major, he is of sound mind, and he is not disqualified by law enforced to contract. So these three things in our previous class we have analyzed. Today we are going to see the fourth condition known as free consent. Section 14 of the Indian Contract Act speaks about free consent. Which section? Section 14. So, according to section 13 and 14 of the Indian Contract Act, two or more parties are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in the same sense and at the same time. That means two parties will be there, they have to agree upon the same thing in the same sense and at the same time. Then only free consent is there, that means exerting free will. Consent is said to be free when it is not caused by flaws in consent. That means disqualifications for consent will be there. For example, A is there, B is there. A will point out a gun to B to enter into the contract. Here, B is not willing to enter into the contract, but as A has pointed out the gun, so there is no option for the B except to enter into the contract. So this is known as coercion. So whenever two parties are entering into a contract, two parties should exercise their free will and they have to give their free consent without any coercion, without any undue influence, without fraud, without misrepresentation, or without mistake. If in a contract, if coercion is there, if undue influence is there, fraud is there, misrepresentation is there, mistake is there, then it cannot be termed as a free consent. So if there is no free consent, ultimately there won't exist any contract between the two persons. So free consent is very, very important for constituting a contract. Once again, section 13 speaks about this. Two or more parties are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing, same sense, same time. Same thing in the same sense and at the same time. And consent is said to be free when it is not caused by flaws in the consent. Flaws means disqualifications in the consent. What are those? Number one, coercion. Number two, undue influence. Number three, fraud. Number 4, misrepresentation. Number 5, mistake. Yes. Now, let us analyze Section 14 of the Indian Contract Act. Section 14 defines free consent. Consent is said to be free. Consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion. It has been defined in Section 15. Undue influence under Section 16. Fraud as defined in Section 17. Misrepresentation as defined in Section 18. Mistake or subject to the provisions of Section 20, 21 and 22. So remember, if any person wants to enter into a contract, it should be free from coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation and mistake. If any of these 5 elements are present in a contract, the contract can be repudiated by the courts. That means the other person who has entered into the contract without exercising his free will or free consent, subsequently he can approach the courts of the law for repudiation of the contract. Repudiation means cancellation of the contract. So whenever two persons are entering into a contract, the contract should be free of coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, or mistake. So, consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, and mistake. So, next fifth point is lawful consideration. Remember, consideration is one of the most essential elements for formation of a contract. No consideration, no contract. So, it is very important ingredient in formation of the contract. What is the meaning of the term consideration? Consideration means something in return. In fact, it is the price that has been paid for the contract, and consideration refers to both the parties. In fact, a contract to be valid and enforceable, there must be a lawful consideration. Remember, lawful consideration. So, consideration is one of the essential elements for formation of a contract. Consideration means something in return. It is the price that has been paid for the contract. Both the offerer as well as the acceptor, both the person should have consideration. Let us take one example. A sells his house to B for rupees 10 lakhs. A sells his house to B for rupees 10 lakhs. Here, A's lawful consideration is rupees 10 lakhs. Similarly, B's lawful consideration is the house. So here A is also getting consideration. What A is getting? He is getting rupees 10 lakhs. Then what B is getting? B is getting his house. That means both the parties have their respective considerations, namely house as well as rupees. Therefore, it is said that a contract without consideration is void. That means a contract without consideration, it is not valid and enforceable. So, a contract without consideration is void. Remember. So, out of all the essential conditions of the contract, lawful consideration is one of the most essential elements for formation of the contract. Consideration means something in return. Remember, no consideration, no contract. A contract without consideration is void. However, there are certain exceptions to this general rule. Let us see what are those exceptions to this general rule. Remember one thing, no consideration, no contract. A contract without consideration is void. This is the tagline. However, there are exceptions to this general rule that a contract without consideration is void. We will analyze this under section 25 of the Indian Contract Act. So, what is the tagline? Without consideration, no contract. A contract without consideration is void. A contract without consideration is not valid and enforceable. This is the main point. However, there are some exceptions to this rule. These exceptions are contained under section 25 of the Indian Contract Act 1872. Three exceptions that has been defined under the Indian Contract Act. One is love and affection. Number two is compensation for voluntary services. Number three is time borrowed debt. Time borrowed debt. So, three exceptions to this rule. One is love and affection. Second one is compensation for voluntary services. Third one is time borrowed debt. In fact, consideration may be past, present, or future. So, the main thing is, even though there is no consideration, under these three circumstances, under these three exceptions, consideration is not there till a contract is valid. What are they? Love and affection, number one. Number two, compensation for voluntary services. And number three is time borrowed debt. Yeah. Seventh ingredient or seventh condition is legal relationship. So, a contract to be enforceable, remember, it must create legal relationship between or among the parties. So, if there is no legal relationship, there cannot exist a contract. Mere domestic or social agreements do not give rise to create legal relationship or consequences. So, for example, A is there. A called B for a dinner. So, B says to A, I will come in the evening for dinner. So, A has prepared dishes for B. Subsequently, due to some reasons unknown, B was unable to go to A's house. Subsequently, A has suffered some damage, that is, he has prepared the dishes that has been wasted. Here, A cannot file a suit against B for not coming to dinner. Why? It is a contract which does not give rise to legal relationship or consequences. Unless and until a contract create legal relationship between or among the parties, it cannot be called as a contract. There is a wonderful case law, namely Balfour versus Balfour. It is very important from your examination point of view. Here, what happens is one person was a civil servant in Ceylon. Civil servant means assume that he is a collector who is working in Ceylon, Sri Lanka. Now, what happened is when he is going for England, he promised his wife that he will send 30 pounds every month. So, one person was working in a Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka, as a collector. He has been deputed for England, and when he is going for England, he promised his wife that he will send 30 pounds every month to his wife. Subsequently, he was unable to keep up his promise. He did not send the amount. Now, the wife filed a suit against her husband that her husband breached the promise. It was held that suit is not actionable or maintainable on the ground that it does not give rise to legal consequences. So, ultimately, from this case law, what you are going to know, unless and until a contract to be enforceable, it must create legal relationship between or among the parties. Mere domestic or social agreements do not give rise to create legal relationship or consequences. The famous case law is Balfour versus Balfour. So unless and until it create legal relationship, a contract cannot be enforced in the courts of law.